Listening to English, even before reading or writing, is key to achieving an advanced level of English. That's why this course is based on listening to English. So, let's get more specific about what listening means and how to listen. There are two ways of listening to a foreign language. One, paying a lot of attention to details. As your capacity to pay attention is limited, especially if your English level is not too high, you can only do this for a limited amount of time, 1, 2, or 5 minutes maximum. This is called active listening. 2, letting the language flow into your ears without paying attention to details. This is what you do naturally almost all the time. This is called passive listening. Listening will help you pronounce and speak correctly. But how should you do it correctly and effectively? These are the steps you should follow to increase your level of English through listening. 1. When you start listening, begin by listening carefully for only 1 to 3 minutes. The rest of the time, you don't need to pay so much attention. Just let the language flow into your ears. Listening carefully means trying to memorize and learn the structures that you're listening to. For example, if you listen to this paragraph, pay attention. The studio was filled with intense smell of roses, and when the gentle summer wind moved through the trees in the garden, the strong essence of lilac entered the room. You should listen to the same paragraph over and over again until all the sounds and structures become familiar. Now, let's see how you should memorize the sounds and the structures. The studio was filled. Sounds something like this. The studio was filled. Listen to it and think about the sounds you have just heard. It is not the studio was filled. This is what you say when you are not really paying attention to what you're listening to. As I said in lesson 1, the mind is like a runaway horse. When you listen to this paragraph, you will automatically hear the sounds that your Spanish mind tells you to hear, unless you do it slowly, pay more attention, and repeat the sentence several times. 2. You have to learn to make the new sentences yours. This means that you'll repeat them so often they won't sound unfamiliar anymore. Becoming familiar with a sentence means that the sentence sounds natural to you and you can visualize the situation in the same way you do it in Spanish when someone says something to you. So when you hear the studio was filled with an intense smell of roses, you actually see the studio and you smell the roses. To get to this degree of familiarity with the sentences, you should listen and repeat aloud what you have just heard 1, 2, 3, or 100 times. 3. First listen 2 or 3 times to the recording, then read the transcript. Reading without listening can be very dangerous. That's why it's important to always listen first. The more you can listen without reading, the better. Think about the following fact. Children spend almost 5 or 6 years of their life listening and speaking their own language before they start learning to read. That's why they never make pronunciation mistakes. If you had done the same in English when you were a child, you wouldn't make any pronunciation mistakes now. So remember that it's very important to listen to English without reading at the beginning. 4. Pay close attention to the differences between the spelling and the sound when you read the transcript. Now, most of the problems related to listening and speaking have to do with not concentrating on the difference between the spelling and the sound of the word. So, if you read in the middle of the room on an easel, you should listen carefully to the sound of each word. Middle, room, closing your lips to say the letter M at the end. Easel, the S is pronounced with certain vibration. That's why in phonetics is represented by a Z or Z. It's not easel. And to the sound of the entire sentence as a whole. In the middle of the room on an easel sounds something like this. In the middle of the room on an easel. Now, what to listen to? This course is based on listening to a graded bilingual audiobook called The Picture of Dorian Gray. We'll go into detail on how to listen to it in the following lessons. However, this is not the only material I want you to listen to during this course. You can listen to all the English you want anytime and any place. Please use your mobile phone, tablet, computer, television, radio, iPod, or any other similar devices to listen to as much English as you can all throughout the day. Take a look at the table, which contains links to different recordings of different levels and degrees of difficulty. You should move between these levels. Never assume that because you're an intermediate student, you shouldn't listen to beginners' recordings. On the contrary, lower level recordings can be very useful for advanced students because they help them to pay closer attention to details. In the course material, you'll find a table with lots of examples of what you can listen. Remember, you have to listen very carefully for only a few minutes at the beginning. Try to remember the sounds, structures, and meanings.